If folks could find their way to some seats, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm Mike Estev, Mayor, and I'm grateful to be joined tonight by my colleagues, City Council Member at Large Dennis Brady, City Council Member District 4 Roxy Ndibumandu, City Council Member at Large Wanda Rogers, Mayor Pro Tem Dufour Wolfley, and joining us remote, City Council Member District 3 Clinton Truesdale. This evening, we're going to open up with budget work session number 5. I would start the meeting tonight by asking all those who are able to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. This evening, we're going to be in budget work session number 5. There's going to be 2 parts to the meeting and then one additional little part. First, we're going to talk about our water and sewer infrastructure. Then we're going to talk about general fund expenditures. And then I will open it up to council members. A few folks reached out to me over the weekend and today and had some minor ideas and adjustments that I encourage us to entertain tonight. And we'll go from there. I will turn this directly over to city staff.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. Daniel Mears, Acting City Manager. So as you mentioned, this evening we're going to be going through our water and sewer and also some more general fund budget. We're going to start tonight. You have seen these slides before, but Mr. Miller's, since it's been a few weeks now since we talked about our expenditures, Mr. Miller's going to go through a swift summary of our water and sewer expenditures just to reorient everybody in terms of overall where we are on water and sewer. And then Dr. Ahn is going to run through a presentation that the City Council had seen last September with a slightly updated version associated with the needs of the infrastructure. So, Mr. Miller, would you please start us off?
Yes, thank you. As mentioned, we'll just do a very, very high-level overview. We'll start with the summary of expenditures for the water sewer combined department. Next slide, please. All right. So as you can see, the overall budget for fiscal year 27 is equal to $24.8 million. This is an increase of $5.4 million over the previous years. The largest change is within the wastewater division, which is equal a $4 million, followed by a $1 million increase in the water division. But overall, the total budget again increased almost 28%. To the right, you'll see the graphical presentation. Again, water division being 45% of the budget, the wastewater division being 44% of the budget, and then the sundry expenditures that are reflected up top, general fund charges of 4%, debt service of 3%, transfers equaling 2%, and then contract services and other equaling 2%. Next slide, please. Here we'll have the detailed expenditures by expense type for the water division itself. Again, the water division increased $1 million over fiscal year 26, from $7 million to $8 million. I'm sorry, $9.8 million to $11.1 million. Again, an increase of $1.3 million, or a 13.4% increase. Personnel services are the largest component at 17%, and then the contract services, commodities, and other charges. So if you look at the graphical presentation to the right, again, you'll see personnel charges of 17%, contract services of 7, commodities of 3, and then the capital outlay of 73%. Next slide, please. The same presentation for the wastewater division. The budget increased from almost $7 million in fiscal '26 to almost $11 million in fiscal year '27, which is a $4 million change, or a 58.4% increase. Besides capital outlay at 64%, personnel services represent the majority of the operating budget at almost 19%, contract services at 13.7%, and then commodities and other charges. Again, same presentation, you'll see this in the pie chart to the right. I won't, for the sake of redundancy, I'll move on to the next slide. This is a combined presentation for the capital expenditures for both the water and sewer enterprise fund. So for the water plant, you'll see a proposed plan for the water plant of $2.7 million. The total capitalization for the 6-year period is $4 million, almost $4.1 million. So the remaining capitalization for fiscal years 28 through 32 is approximately $1.3 million. This represents 6.3% of the budget. The next project is the maintenance of the water storage tanks. This is a $100,000 annual recommendation. So year one being 27 at 100, remaining 5 years at 500, easy math, $100,000 a year. 6-year capitalization, $600,000, or almost 1% of the request. The next is a wastewater treatment plant and water distribution. Year one of fiscal year 27 is $3 million. The remaining capitalizations for 28 through 32 is $11.4 million, for a total 6-year request of $14.4 million, representing 22% of that of the capital expenditures. The next line number is the recapitalization of the facility, $5 million per year for the next 6 years, for totaling $30 million. And that represents 46.8% of the request. And then finally, the last project is requested, the sewer main, $2.5 million for fiscal year 27, the remaining 5 years of 12.5, and the 6-year capitalization of $15 million. So for fiscal year 27 total, you'll see the request equals $13.4 million. For the following 5 years, $50.7 million, and the total of that 6-year period representing $64.1 million. And again, a similar presentation, pie chart presentation to the right. The water distribution and recapitalization of 37%, the sewer main recapitalization at 19%, working back the other way, wastewater treatment plant at 22%, the storage tank at 1%, and the water plant at 21%. Next slide, please. So the question is, how is this proposed to be financed? So again, the renewal and replacement fees approximating $738,000, which is no change over the prior year. Water sales increasing $300,000 over the previous year at almost 10% increase. The sewage surcharges totaling $4.8 $6 million or $531,000 increase. A minimum charge of $1,050,000, equating to a $6,000 change. Other revenue decreasing $282,000 from $916,000 down to $634,000. Borrowing, essentially for all the capital, or not essentially, but for all, going from $9.4 million to the proposed level at $13.4 million, fiscal year 27, equating to a change of $4 million. That's a 42% increase over the prior year and represents 54% of the budget. And then grants increasing to $961,000 or $842,000 change. And the totals here, fiscal year 26, $19.4 million, 27, $24.8 million, or an aggregate change of $5.4 million, which is almost a 28% increase of the prior year. And again, the pie chart to your right, highlighting the different areas. And since I went through a lot of detail with that, I'll skip reiterating the same information to you. So with that concludes the presentation. Again, very high level overview of the sources and uses of the wastewater enterprise fund.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
Yes, sir.
So we wanted to go through that presentation again so that the council, the public could see where we are ultimately with our water and sewer enterprise fund. And the story really comes down to infrastructure and investing back into the infrastructure. So this budget was prepared. You saw the recapitalization fee that has been assessed for the past about a decade or so in the city remains unchanged at $738,000, and that is essentially set up to be the revenue that was funding the water main recapitalization program, and has largely been unchanged over that time. But you also see that the budget was prepared with a significant amount of borrowing associated with it to cover the costs going out into the future. Our let's see, this past fall, we borrowed about $8 million. It was part of a larger bond issuance. So those funds are available for us to be utilizing and spending in this next fiscal year. But one of the challenges, as you saw going out into the out years, is there is a significant amount more capital planned, effectively $7.5 million or so each and every year just in the water and sewer mains going forward. What I wanted to do now was have Dr. Ahn go through the presentation that he had given to this body last September. It has been updated just a little bit, and I think that'll be beneficial so you can see where we are associated with investments back in our infrastructure. So, Dr. Ahn, if you would take it away, please.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Again, my name is An. I'm the Public Works Director. I'm here to give you an updated overview of water and sewer system rehab.
Okay. We have that next PowerPoint ready to queue up? There we go.
Okay, yep. So to set the stage, City of Bowie has operated its own water and sewer system since 1960s. Today, we serve approximately 8,000 accounts, supplying 1.6 million gallons of water on average per day through the 90 miles of our water main system, fed by 3 tanks and 6 wells. We also maintain over 500 fire hydrants and 2,125 manholes. On the wastewater side, we process another 1.6 million gallons per day on average, and through the separate 90 miles of sewer network. So these maps is to illustrate the full extent of both systems across the city. And as you can tell, the density of these lines reflect both the complexity and the scale of what we are maintaining and rehabilitating. Since fiscal year 2021, we've completed water main rehab in several neighborhoods. We started with the smaller pilot program on Long Ridge and Liana Place. Then we moved to a major multi-year Heather Hills project. As of now, we've accomplished about 52,000 linear feet of water main, equates to be about 9.6 miles at a cost of $14 million. This map shows the graphical representation of what we've accomplished and what we are planning to do starting fiscal 27 through the fiscal year 32, next 6 years.
The light blue, or the blue is the plan, is that correct?
Well, teal or light blue, I'm sorry about the not distinguishable color option, but lower left side of the map represents the accomplishment, and the upper right corner of the map represents the planned work, Councilman.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Well, this slide also shows the plans for the next 6 years. We will continue work remainder of the Kenilworth area into the Buckingham neighborhoods, covering roughly about 82,000 additional linear feet through the fiscal year 32, which is about 15.5 miles at an estimated cost of $29 million. However, after fiscal year 32, we will still have approximately 350,000 linear feet, or 65 miles, or 72% of the total system that still need to be rehabbed. At an average cost, based on the current rates, there's about $130 million in remaining work. The timeline depends entirely on funding level. At $10 million investment per year, we complete in 2045. At $5 million per year, it extends to 2058. Now turning to the sewer system, it's typically organized into two types of infrastructure. Local sewers, they serve individual neighborhoods and connect to trunk and interceptor. Interceptor typically, trunk typically ranges from 6 to 8 inches in diameter, and interceptor ranges from 10 to 24 inches in diameter. In total, we have about 480,000 linear feet of a sewer main. Among 350 linear feet represents the local sewer, and the 130,000 feet of trunk and interceptor lines. Compared to water main rehab, sewer rehab is relatively newer to our program. We completed Somerset 1 in fiscal year 25 and Somerset 2 in FY 26. Together, we've accomplished about 20,000 linear feet, or 4 miles, at a combined cost of $4 million. Similar to the water main rehab, this map shows the completed work in magenta color and planned or future work. Apologies. So green color represents the accomplishment, and magenta color represents the planned work from FY27 through the FY32. Yes, Councilman.
Quick question for you. The selection of the areas to pursue, was that to ensure that it wasn't interfering with the water, or is there a different methodology for selecting the areas that are worked on?
Well, that's a great point. So we don't want to work to be overlapped by the water main rehab and the sewer main rehab. Another consideration is we started from the location further away from the wastewater treatment plant. Mm-hmm. And we also approach in by neighborhoods because one of the most expensive component of this process is the mobilization. So having a smaller size of work in multiple locations would cost us more in the demobilization. So we try to set up the work at one location and accomplish as much as possible before moving on to next location.
Thank you.
So over the next 6 years, we plan to accomplish the remaining Somerset and move on to Meadowbrook area, covering about 66,000 linear feet or 12.7 miles at an estimated cost of $14 million. After FY32, roughly 253,000 linear feet remaining equates to be 48 miles or 53% of the system. Estimated cost is $55 million. With the investment level of $5 million a year, it is expected to be completed in 11 years, or FY43. At $2.5 million of investment, it extends to FY54. Well, trunk and interceptor rehab is a significant undertaking on its own. As mentioned before, that represents about 27% of our sewer main system. The cost of rehab is estimated to be $60 million. At $5 million investment level, it would take about 12 years, and estimated completion is FY44. At $2.5 million investment level, it extends to 2056. So this is the summary slide of what I have presented this evening. On the water side, we've accomplished about 10 miles of a rehab. We are planning to accomplish about 15.5 miles in the next 6 years at a cost of $29 million. And the total estimated future investment of $130 million. On the sewer side, we've completed 4 miles and have planned for the next 6 years with 73 miles remaining at an estimated cost of $115 million. As you know, combined, this is a long-term infrastructure commitment well in in excess of $250 million. We've made meaningful progress, but scale what remains requires a council's continued support and investment in the future.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ahn. So I wanted to revisit this presentation. I thought it was pretty illustrative when we saw it last fall. Right after this meeting, I asked Dr. Ahn, when he was preparing his budget, to ensure that the capital plan that you all see included that minimum level of investment for both the water main system and also the sewer main system. So contained in your budget on page number 304 and page number 306, you will see that there is, per this presentation, planned expenditures on water main recapitalization of $5 million per year and planned expenditures on the sewer side. Not everything he presented there, but $2.5 million per year from the sewer side. This is ultimately a challenge for us in terms of this presentation to you all. When the sewer mains were brought forth by Mr. Holt a couple of years ago as a needed investment for us, that got added into our capital plan without any associated revenue with that plan. So we've spent $4 million on the sewer main without having any increase to that recapitalization fee, that $738,000 a year that we had generated. So we wanted to bring this to you to highlight an issue associated with this budget that's presented to you. There is a significant amount of capital that is presented in the coming years. We have the dollars for fiscal year 27 that we're going to spend from last year's borrowing, but for the years going out into the future, we do not have sufficient revenue coming in into the city in regards to that. The plan that was put forth for the budget being presented this year was that the city would borrow again. We did have Mr. Miller put together a summary in regards to the borrowing costs associated with that, and you'll see that under borrowing levels of $15 million, $20 million, $25 million, there is a significant cost in regards to the repayment of debt if we were to issue more debt going out into the future. I think we'll pause here because I know we hit you with a lot of information. We're welcome to answer any questions and talk about this further.
Appreciate it, staff. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to see if we have any initial questions. Councilmember Rogers.
Just a couple questions, just for clarity around particularly the sewer main issues, so that residents at home can understand what the consequences are of not repairing the sewer mains. So immediately my mind went to, we understand the corrosion or the rust in the water that people drink, and we know that's a significant problem. But when we talk about the wastewater going out, immediately your mind goes to, well, it's wastewater, it's going out, what's the issues? But what I'm seeing is the sewers are designed to collect wastewater from intended sources and convey it downstream, and the cost of these effects can be extraneous water and backup of the sewer main. They create extra maintenance and backups into the home, which is something that we don't want to happen. And it also says here that the majority of the pipe is terracotta and some cast iron. You want to talk a little bit more about that? Thank you.
So for the city of Bowie, main is a cast iron, and as you know that they are subject to deterioration. Gas that may corrode the cast iron pipes. So as you shared, Councilwoman, that unintended consequences of not maintaining is the failure. So once it fails, either it gets backed up or it's a sewer is being spilled. That's the unintended consequences. And just like anything else in our lives, it has a service life. And I'd like to put emphasis one more time, our system is over 60 years old. And we've a lot of deferred maintenance for our, both for water and our sewer system, Councilwoman.
So to
Thank
build
you.
on that, just a bit, Dr. Ahn was talking overflows. The entire purpose of our sewage collection system is to get that sewage to the wastewater treatment plant where we may treat it so it can be then safely discharged back into the environment. When you have a sanitary sewer overflow, depending on the location of where that is releasing sanitary sewer. So all of the things that we put down our drains ends up directly out into the environment. That is an issue for the Maryland Department of the Environment. They're very concerned as to when we are discharging sewage out into the environment, and we will be duly fined and noticed anytime that we allow those issues to persist. So maintaining this infrastructure and maintaining it in a fashion that we do not end up with regular and ongoing sanitary sewer overflows is an important part of our mission.
Thank you, Mr. Acting City Manager. Thank you.
My apologies.
Councilmember Brady.
Thank you. A couple of, in the presentation, it was noted that for the water system, the capital outlays amounted to 73%. And for the wastewater, it's 64%. It seems kind of high. I'm just wondering, for a normal, you might say optimal system, water and wastewater system, how much would we expect capital outlays to be for a normal system? We are basically not a normal system given the problems that we have. That seems extremely high and maybe a challenge to try and continue with that level of payment for this very limited system that we have. But it's set, are 3/4 outlays of the budget typical?
I don't have an answer for that. Mr. Holt, would you know offhand what a typical capital outlay would be for a water and sewer system?
I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
With the age of the system, that is basically the reason why I believe it's high. Like, rehabilitation of this system has not been, it's been going on, but it's not been aggressive. And so it's a catch-up, I believe. We're trying to catch up to what it should have been done years ago.
Agreed.
And so I believe we're paying for that. Coming from WSSC, and I understand they have tons of money. They've been doing rehab sewer mains, almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. They've been doing this. With water mains, they've been doing this longer than that. And they've known this, and they're aggressive about doing that. When I came on, it was, I understood the monies that were associated with doing the rehab and all that sort, but I don't think the budget was more in operation rather than rehabilitation.
Right.
And that's where the disconnect was.
Okay.
So
I hope that answers your question.
It generally does. Thank you for that. And as I said, I didn't mean to put you on the spot with them. With regards to the cost, you mentioned failure with regards to the sewage system. you have a projected cost to rehabilitate the system. Does that include any, you might say, expectation that it won't just be rehabilitation, but rather responding to failures and having to do emergency repairs? Or is that a separate pot?
So if you recall, on water main failure is about 10 to 11 per 100 mile per year.
Right.
But we are experiencing over 20 water main fails per year. So that alone indicates, it's a good indication our system is aging, and it's beyond the beyond maintenance phase. We need to rehab our water main infrastructure. But back to your question, that as we rehab higher number of higher number of linear feet of our system, we should see decreasing number of those unplanned activities or failures. So
Agreed.
that's going to be one of the benefits of a rehab.
Okay. Yeah, it'll address the future failures, but as we work through the rehabilitation, we're going to have failures on top of what we're doing, which is going to add to the costs. And it doesn't sound like that's factored into the estimates that you provided with rehabilitation, so it's a separate pot and an unknown pot. Where have we looked for grants and supports and what have you, either from the state or federal? And have we looked at any private philanthropical possibilities for grants to bring money in to help with this?
So I'll take this one. The city has applied just for the past few years what is known as now congressional directed spending, previously referred to in prior administrations as our favorite pork that used to come from the federal government. That has returned in the last few years, and the city has attempted to secure funding from the federal government to assist us with that. Over the past I think it's been 6 years that we've been pursuing those funds from the federal government. We have gotten about $3 million, including $1 million that was just allocated this past spring to go into our water system, our water main distribution system. We also received funding, I believe it was $1.8 million that is going directly into other infrastructure. What we've been talking about tonight has just been the water distribution and the sewage collection system. We also have a water plant where we are producing the water and a sewage treatment plant where we are treating the water. We have not been talking about the infrastructure needs that are ongoing for those as well. So all told, we're at about $5 million over the past 6 years that we've gotten in from the federal government, so a little under $1 million a year that we've been successful for. The state of Maryland, they offer loan programs effectively. They are not grant programs that we are eligible for in regards to that.
Okay. Then I'll close by informing staff and my colleagues having conversations with Delegate Holmes, and he is willing to put in a bill to do a summer study or a task force to look at the water and sewer issue. I've talked to MML trying to find out how many municipalities have their own water and sewer systems and how many of them have a similar problem across the state. And hopefully we can possibly get something moving in that direction that may help us in the future. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, staff, as always, for good presentation and keeping us on keeping us up to date with the latest developments. A couple a series of questions. There, a lot of them are unrelated, but other than that, they're all water and sewer, so forgive me if they're kind of random. And I'll start with the sewer system. We've not talked about it as much as we have the water main, rehab. We have some portions of our sewer system that are actually under pressure, correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right. So from my standpoint, having seen the calamity that befell, the city and what happened at the canal and so forth, to me, that seems like the riskiest, opportunity for failure. Where do we stand on pressurized segments and where they fall into the scheme, and are they more or less expensive to deal with?
You made a great point. Beginning this year, we started inspecting our force sewer mains. And we also included the budget for next year to expand the force sewer main inspection coming years. As you pointed out, those are critical portion of the sewer main infrastructure.
How many miles do we have of forced mains?
Do you have the number? Force main?
We have about 12 miles of forced mains.
Oh, my.
We have 6 pumping stations. So they're coming out of the pumping stations, and then they're going in and dumping into what I call a transition manhole, which is gravity that feeds it back into the wastewater treatment plant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. The approach for the sewers has been geographic. Is there any thoughts or concerns about it shifting to address the forced mains earlier in the process, or are they of adequate condition that we're not unduly at risk?
So that's why we started the inspection program on those forced sewer mains. Because we need to know the condition of those forced sewer mains first to have a plan moving forward, and the cost estimate as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Percentage-wise, what percentage of our sewer lines are actually under streets and that sort of thing, as opposed to, I know some of the forced ones are back in, behind what used to be ravines or whatever. What is the percentage that are under streets and obscured by other infrastructure?
I don't have the exact breakdown, but you made another great point. Some of the forced remains are less accessible locations, hence the increased cost of rehab. And we are targeting those locations for our inspection priority, Councilman.
When it comes time to do some of these pipes that are out in, behind neighborhoods and they're not underneath streets and so forth, is there any opportunity to just, instead of repairing, just to lay a new pipe, presumably since it's not, you don't have to then abandon the old? Is that any less expensive than trying to repair what's in place?
So the method we are utilizing, not just for sewer but also water main, is it's called the structural lining. So we are not really replacing pipes. We are lining the existing pipes. But once it's cured, it provides a structural support as well. So even if the existing pipe fails, the structural lining will act as a new pipe system.
Right. So I understand that. So if, for example, there's a sewer line that runs, say, back behind Long Ridge that goes along the backside there, I actually think that one's a WSSC one, but instead of would it be cheaper to replace that pipe as opposed to relining it? Because there's no, I mean, there's trees and ground, but there's no, no man-built infrastructure like roads and sidewalks and things like that.
One of the biggest cost component of water and sewer or any utility work is the cost of earthwork. If you could minimize earthwork, for instance, the digging,
I see.
that's the cheapest way to do anything, Councilman.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. I look forward to see what we learn about our testing on these other pipes.
Yes, sir.
The sewer lines, I presume that the risk with the local sewer lines is more about water infiltration, groundwater infiltration, than it is about leakage going out, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have we seen any increase in sewage processing per gallon going out and gallon coming back, or has that been steady?
Based on our water production and the water process rate, we see very comparable numbers.
Okay.
So we don't suspect any infiltration into our water treatment plant or sewer system.
Excellent. Thank you. I want to, for a moment, now jump over to the water. We recently had our major fiasco or major problem at 450 and Trinity and Moylan. And it was a whole saga of replacing valves, which turned into replacing or repairing pipes that are clearly breaking and not holding up. The one good thing that came out of that, and I followed up with some constituents afterwards, was that their water is looking very good. And prior to that, it had been a mess. Now, we've not replaced any pipes in that area. It was clearly as a result of the extensive flushing, if you will, for that immediate area. Is there any merit in increasing the flushing frequency to twice a year, or the intensity of it, the volumes? Because we've had a number of instances this year where we've had January, February, March, where we had some large number of complaints that were somewhat inconsistent with other areas in the past. Does it make sense to increase our hydrant flushing program so as to reduce some of the problems our customers are seeing?
Well, first of all, I'm very happy that we made a few constituents happier than
it was
before.
Expensive, right?
I'm so glad that our efforts were noticed, because since the incident, we also increased the hours of flushing before restoring the system, restoring the service. So that should have helped as well. The flushing, higher frequency of flushing would help, but that would cost the additional manpower. That's going to be main constraint, Councilman.
There may be an opportunity, and I'd like for you to think about this, for periodic or directed increase in flushing. That is to say, we had some instances, as I said, back in January, February timeframes, where certain areas were getting we were getting a lot of calls about the dirty water, the brown water, and there may be an opportunity to mitigate some of that by saying, there's an isolated need in these neighborhoods or in that part of the system to do some additional flushing as we see some complaints going up. Can you take a look at that and take a look at what that might look like on an ad hoc basis, addressing some of these that come up, so that we might have a area-wide flushing campaign if all of a sudden it starts to pop up like it did back in the first quarter of this year.
Yes, sir, we'll get back to you.
Excellent, thank you. The next question is on billing and meter reading. If I'm not mistaken, all of our meters are new, been replaced?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and so they're all drive-by?
Yes, sir.
Excellent.
100%.
And that was, I think, a 7-year project, so kudos to everybody for making that happen. So with this, I presume we've had a significant reduction in manpower needed for that. Now the question becomes, does it make sense to change the frequency of our billing? We are now presently a quarterly billing operation, which yields a higher water bill and also puts customers at a bit of a disadvantage if they are unable to discern that there may be a leak in their house or what have you, if they're not getting regular usage rates from their meter. So I know that one year I had a very nice note applied to my door indicating that my water bill was unusually high, and yes, we had already checked, and it was real. And the reason was because we had just put in a new, seeded a new lawn, and the numbers went up. But from a consumer standpoint, it would be beneficial, I think, to be able to discern, changes in water usage on a monthly basis. Mr. City Manager, I see you have some thoughts.
I was whether or not he had a typical response associated with this. I have in prior jurisdictions looked into this. The barrier that I've encountered in the past has been twofold: the additional cost of mailing out the bills and the workload associated with customers coming in on a more frequent basis in terms of making payments. It is something that is possible to do. We need to do a little bit of research for you to determine what that would mean in terms of the costs of processing that billing, as well as just the impact on the staffing associated with it. Preference has been in the past to put efforts in towards online payments, moving people towards electronic payments, and getting those percentages up, so we have more of those in place prior to looking at a shift going from quarterly to more frequent billing enterprises. So I've not gone through a change to increase the frequency, but research in the past in other jurisdictions has been that it has been undesirable, and the desire to move towards those online payments and things has been the preference in those decisions.
All right. Well, that leads into my next line of questioning, which is, it's quarterly, I think, in large part because historically the water bills were pretty small, and secondly, there was a lot of labor involved with it. But you raised the other issue, which is automation on our billing side. Frankly, the water bill is the only bill I get in paper form any longer. And I think that now may be the time to, instead of trying to get people just to be nice and so forth, this may be an opportunity to say, you're going to get a digital version of your bill, and if you don't take your digital version of your bill through, an email or what have you, you can still have paper, but it'll cost you. And the same thing on the payments, which is to get people on an automated payment methodology, which would be, direct debit, send you a digital bill, let you know, just like my electric bill, just like my gas bill, they let me know what it's going to be and when the money is going to be withdrawn from my accounts. And obviously that's a convenience for me, but it's also a huge savings from the standpoint of operational. So to the extent that we can save on operational expenses, I'm very interested in seeing what we can do to accelerate, if you will, the transition to a fully automated digital billing cycle.
I think you'd have a lot of concurrence amongst the staff here associated with that. I don't think we have anybody here that's has the knowledge of what our percentage of those types of payments and where we're at with that, but I think it's a very worthwhile research item for us.
Excellent, thank you. And as I said, I would not be, obviously I haven't mentioned or discussed it yet with any of my colleagues, but I have no problem for, people paying for the privilege of a piece of mail. For a piece of paper, well, then they get to pay for that in one way, shape, or form or another. But anyway, if you would have take opportunity to discuss with staff, figure out what the percentage breakouts are, see what it looks like, and then we could look at perhaps the merits of a monthly bill in that environment. The next question I have is on managing projects. So we have spoken, we have $9 million, I think, for $7 million, I think, for capital budget for this 27 fiscal year.
There's $7.5 million just in the water main and sewer main, and I think we have more capital beyond that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking right now of the water and sewer mains. How much do you think you could, how much can staff handle in terms of if we were to accelerate this and say, all right, we're going at a 7 million clip, what's my max capacity before having to go through some tipping point where I'm adding either costs or people?
Councilman, so ideally, if we have more than one location of a project, water sewer main rehab, we'd like to have a dedicated inspector for each site location. And another limiting factor is that to minimize the disturbance to the service and also the traffic, we like to limit work site not more than 4 at one time. So the manageable size of workload would be 2 work locations for water and 2 work locations for sewer, 4 total at any given time.
And what does that roughly equate to in dollars?
In terms of dollar amount, which it'd be about $20 to $25 million a year, Councilman.
So 22 to 25. So our max throughput capacity is about 3 times what our current spend level is. So right now we have a 7.5 million, and our throughput max is about 22.
Yes, sir. That'd be a fair statement.
All right. So now we're going to turn to the next issue, which is to finance that, that sort of accelerated schedule. Can we get a feel for what that would look like if we did $22 million a year, until the project comes to its logical conclusion? What would be the best way to finance that in chunks that make sense? We don't want to borrow money that's going to be spent 8 years from now. And then I also don't want to be in a position where I have raised my operating or my total cost unnecessarily. What would it look like to try and accelerate using some financing?
Interesting that you ask several borrowing assumptions that we kind of like, just for sheer magnitude, way too premature to even consider it, but was to do the whole thing, $22 million times. I did, I believe, $264 million, which would be the total package, if you will. So that would not be a doable project, but it gives you the magnitude. But if we were looking at something a little bit more reasonable, I did a $15 million debt issuance, a $20 million debt issuance, and a $25 million debt issuance. Again, using a 20-year life or amortization. Now, it should be noted that this type of project would probably qualify for a longer amortization period because it is such a significant infrastructure and it has that long-term useful life. So that is something that we consider to reduce the cash flow burden if that's something that would be of interest. I use a 5% interest rate. Again, maybe a little high based on current markets. Not to get overly technical, but I used a semi-annual payment, but I'm just looking at this as, for aggregating up each year. So for a level payment, what you're looking at is approximately $1.2 million of debt service a year, and that's on a level payment. If you look at a level principal, if you recall the level principal, you pay more in the early years, but lower on the out years, and overall savings using a level principal. But again, if you're looking to get a head start, reduce the cash flows, lessen the impact to the customers' monthly utility payment, the level payment for this first issuance probably would be recommended. And again, that's $1.2 million compared to the structure that Dr. Ahn was talking about.
All right, so the 1.2 payment is on a, how much loan?
That's a $15 million.
That's 15.
Same assumptions for a $20 million, that's approximately 1.6. And then for a $25 million, that's essentially $2 million a year. What I would recommend, just personally, because of the complexity and the timing of all these pieces that we're looking at, is possibly doing a year one, but that would give you time to really develop a plan. I would also state, because you have borrowing in the fiscal year 27 budget, that you can always do a supplemental appropriation. And I would recommend spending a little bit more time moving those pieces around and then doing, if it makes sense, a supplemental appropriation based on on that plan.
So if we look at the fiscal year, and if we look at this, we could be in a position where we have $7.5 million worth of work being performed in this fiscal year. We could work to put something in place right after it, and it may fall in 27 fiscal year, or it could fall in 28 fiscal year, but the point would be that you could plan for a bigger bite from the apple to accelerate this, which of course means, we have to hit the payments. Obviously there's still an expense associated with this. No such thing as free lunch, right?
And exactly, and I really would focus on the rates. You have to have the mechanism to pay pay the principal, the debt service. And we have to be able to demonstrate, if we go and do a negotiated deal or an open market deal, that we have the capacity in our rate structure to pay that. So there's an equal amount of time, and probably a little bit more time, to look at that, what that rate structure would look like.
So to remind the city council, the current funding that we receive in the renewal and replacement fee, $38,000 per year, that works out to about $100 per account. So if you're looking at Mr. Miller's analysis of borrowing $20 million, you would need to have that amount just for that one debt issuance, add an extra $200 per year for that one debt issuance in order to cover it.
Indeed. So there's also the question of how we bill this out, right? So is it part of water fees, as to say, based on usage and volume, which I think to a certain degree has a counter benefit, right? Which is you raise the rates, it reduces the amount of water. I mean, there's going to be some, presumably, there's always going to be some level of fluctuation in water, but if you separate the two and the water rate remains what it currently is or less expensive, and the debt burden is paid with just a straight up obligatory quarterly or monthly fee, where there may be better value in doing it that way. I don't know what the best options are, but I think that's something we ought to look at as well. How much of it we pay through just a line item that says recapitalization, and that pays for all the debt associated with recapitalizing these pipes, as opposed to hiding it in the water bill.
That is certainly something we investigate. When the decision was made, this predates me in regards to putting that recapitalization fee as a flat fee. I would make an assumption that they had gone through a bit of that analysis in terms of determining how to put that in place. The overwhelming majority of our utility accounts are residential. We have a small number of commercial accounts, but we would want to evaluate to see the benefit of spreading that out based on water usage, and that could be something that we evaluate.
Mm-hmm. I know people hate to see it. I mean, people always tell me, that darn fee. I'm like, well, what about the rest of the bill? It's much bigger, but people really hate that fee. All right. Thank you at the moment. I think that's it for me. I'll kind of turn over to my colleagues.
Thank you, Council. Colleagues? No? Okay. So the monthly billing and the automated billing, and it sounds like staff's recommendation is we can look into both of those, but you recommend moving forward in making sure that we have fully electronic billing available and get those numbers up before we do anything else as far as changing the frequency of the billing. Okay. But I do hear general consensus from my colleagues that we want to make sure we're moving quickly on the automated billing and exploring what it would look like to do it monthly. You're going to get us at least some idea of the staff impact so that we can evaluate that. Is that okay?
Billing and payment.
Billing and payment. Yep. Perfect. Staff okay with that? Perfect. Let's see. On the flushing frequency, Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley brings up the potential of additional flushing. Dr. On, you're saying that's a matter of staff time. Will you just kind of look into what a more frequent flushing schedule might look like from a staff cost perspective? Just give us an idea. Colleagues okay with that? Cool. Thank you. Let's see, total projects we discussed, financing capacity. Oh, one other issue that one of my colleagues, I think Mayor Pro Tem Wolfley, suggested previously. Is there anything, is it completely silly of us to consider changing the time of day we do hydrant flushing to minimize customer disruption. So we currently do hydrant flushing during the day. What would it cost us? What would it look like if we did it at night to minimize the amount of impact to residents?
Only costs associated with those would be the overtime of our staff, Mr. Mayor.
Could you do some investigating and back to us with what that overtime cost would look like? And again, it will give us an opportunity to kind of weigh cost benefit. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Can I follow up?
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
And so I want to follow up with that. I mean, I think the logic on that, people aren't using the water in any meaningful way, perhaps they're in the middle of the night. Do you think it would have the intended effect that we're looking for, which is to minimize the impact on consumers?
It'd be difficult to gauge the impact by changing the time, because, well, the number of households impacted during the flushing is relatively small. But let me look at different pros and cons of changing the time of flushing, and I'll report back to the council.
That also takes in a couple assumptions that, number one, that the consequence of the flushing will occur either immediately. So when you talk about doing it in the evening, it could be immediately, or it could occur downstream, during the morning hours for someone else. So it's all relative as far as impacts are concerned. Am I correct?
Yes, Councilwoman.
Yeah, so that makes it kind of hard to make a concrete presumption around flushing at night would have an impact during early morning hours, when I've heard people complain, in other neighborhoods, they've been impacted by flushing. I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
It's a night, but okay. All right. Long term, so if we were to proceed hypothetically with a $15 million loan, and we're looking at the options that you gave us, thank you, Mr. Miller, at the level payment for principal and interest, the total impact on our rate in order to fund that would be pretty considerable, given what the existing rate generates now, $700,000 a year, versus what it would need to generate. I mean, just for these payments alone, we're looking at, on the low end, $1.2 million a year. So just want to make sure that I'm repeating that out loud, that's, any way we slice this, we're going to have to look at that rate. Mayor Pro Tem suggests maybe a separate fee so that people can see what they're paying for exactly. Just want to make sure I'm articulating that. Any other questions from any of my colleagues? I know this was a lot of information tonight. I think my colleagues are going to want to chew this over a little bit. We will reach out directly to Mr. Mears if we have any additional questions or thoughts this week. We will need to make some final decisions by the 18th, is my understanding, on this particular enterprise fund.
So the staff tonight is going to be working on, which will go out to you all on Thursday. And then it'll be up for your consideration on the 18th.
Perfect. So let's aim to get Councilmember Brady.
Just a cautionary note, so that we don't address this in some of the ways that we've addressed a few issues over the previous budget work sessions. It was pointed out that we have the option to do a supplemental budget later in the year to address these issues, so it may be better to move forward with what we have already in the budget, ready to go, and then immediately start, as we discuss our subcommittee of the whole, looking at this with regards to having additional information, additional analysis, excuse me, with the sorry, an understanding of not only the problem, what's necessary, but the impact, and we can do it in a very controlled and methodical fashion rather than trying to lump something together in the next week to 10 days. So I would just suggest that we not table it, but rather move forward with what we've been working on for the last several weeks, and then pick this up once we move forward with the adopted budget.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, Council Member.
I would, regardless of the way we move forward in regards to funding, whether that be through a bit of extra borrowing or spending more in terms of capital, there is a very real need to be getting more dollars into the system. And the sooner that we do that, the better that we are off. I would recommend any increase that you would like to propose this evening that we could add into the renewal and replacement fee would go a long way towards helping us get to that issue of having more money coming into the system. Likewise, the budget was prepared with a rate increase of 10%. If you would prefer to consider increasing that, I don't think any number that you'd be willing to say would be unacceptable from the staff's perspective.
Understood, staff. And I don't think there'll be any objections to the proposed rate increase. On the fee increase, if we have a consensus before Thursday, we'll let you know. If not, I agree with Councilmember Brady. You know, we'll have a little bit more breathing room. We can do something on the supplemental end. Are we not able to change the fee after the 18th?
You can.
We can, okay.
Yeah. Oh, we are on a quarterly billing cycle, so
Right.
Ultimately, any fee change that would happen after that would be cycled out beyond that period of time.
Understood.
So if we didn't do it now, we'd lose a quarter, we'd lose another quarter, depending on how long you went.
Understood. So to Councilmember Brady's point, we've got some breathing room, so we don't have to feel overly rushed if we don't have a consensus before Thursday. Otherwise, I think your rate proposal is just fine. All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Councilmember. Anything else on this item, ladies and gents? Oh, Councilmember Truesdale.
Thank you, Mayor, staff. All was answered. I just appreciative of city staff for doing the homework. Thank you.
The council member is grateful to be on WSSC tonight. All right, we'll turn us now to item B, general fund expenditures. I will turn us back over to staff.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. So at our work session last week, the City Council had, it's actually at our business meeting last week, let me correct that. We had gone through with establishing a rate associated with the real property tax. Through the discussion, there was interest relayed of looking at more opportunities for some cuts or reductions to the budget. With that, the City Council made a motion to take a look at some of the ideas proposed by Councilwoman Ndeba Madu. And this evening, we wanted to go through and talk about some of those responses associated with that. First off, get my glass here. The first proposal was to take a look at a vacancy and attrition savings target. It was to establish a vacancy and attrition savings target equal to 1.5% of budgeted general fund personnel costs, excluding sworn public safety positions and positions directly required for legally mandated service delivery hiring into non-public safety, non-revenue generating, or non-core service vacancies should require notice to the council before the position is filled. Mr. Miller, you did a little bit of work to identify what a vacancy and attrition savings target of 1.5% would be under those conditions. What did you find?
Yes, so. If you will, to applying a savings component to every single category. I took half of the budget, since the budget, 50% of the budget is basically your salaries and benefits. That's $50 million. I then took half of that because the categories, if you will, that represent the exclusions is roughly a little bit more than 50%, but 50%. So again, that comes down to about $25 million. And then multiplying the $25 million, and I forgot my math, so I'm doing that right now, thank you, times 1.5. That is about an additional $3 million. $3.5 million. So remember, I'm sorry, did I?
You're off by
A decimal. Okay,
2 decimal points off.
370. Thanks. Okay, $370,000, I stand corrected. So $370,000 on top of the 1.5 that is already part of the budget.
Gotcha. And the total number of positions impacted, since we're excluding
Thank
public safety, legally mandated for service delivery, and we're focusing on non-revenue generating, non-core services, we would be talking about essentially what?
This
6 or 7 positions that we would just need council to review before they were filled?
I would say that this was sort of an obtuse target for us to kind of put together, which was really lending to the general nature of Mr. Miller's math associated with that. I don't think we have a good sense of what the number of positions that would be.
Okay. I mean, just based on the math and knowing what the total city personnel number is, what 1.5 is, and excluding police, I think we'd be looking at about 6 or 7 roles. Not that that's not worthy of consideration. I'm sure council can find 6 positions over the course of a year that we would be willing to reconsider, especially through attrition. I don't think there'd be any problem there. Do any of my colleagues have any questions on this? We want to continue to discuss this in our future budget meetings. In principle, I'm very comfortable with us looking at attrition in the manner described as we go forward. Sounds good. We got general consensus. Thank you, staff. All right, next one.
All right, yes. The next one was a request to look at general fund contractual services reduction to reduce the services by no less than $750,000, inclusive of targeted departmental reductions below, excluding public safety, emergency operations, utilities, insurance, debt service, and legally required services. Reduction should be prioritized from professional services, advertising, subscriptions, printing, consulting, discretionary outreach, and non-essential contracted support. So we had sent out, included in the packet, was a list of potential reductions. We had listed those as contractual services. I do have a paper copy in case anybody on the council has a need, but we would be glad to go through it. So with that, list, which was attached to the agenda, and you have in paper now. If you want to go through these one by one, or if you want to call them out individually, we'd be glad to go through it in any manner that you'd like.
So we can do a couple things. If my colleagues want to sit with this for a week, we can discuss these on Monday, the 18th. And I can work offline with folks to see if there's a general consensus on any of these. There's not a ton of them. If folks want to go line by line tonight, we can do that. But I'm open to what my colleagues kind of prefer. Yes, ma'am.
Determinations.
So this was, the main criteria was taking a look at contractual services, and that provided us a very narrow category of expenses to look at in terms of making those determinations. Essentially, the criteria that was looked at, staff had gone through, actually back in March, taking a look at various categories that could be cut and reduced. We took a look through those items which were available, contained within the contractual services, and worked to add things in that were least disruptive to the city's operations that could get us to $750,000 in that category.
Okay, thank you. That's what I needed to hear. So you looked at risk as well as consequences, including unintentional consequences. So that's more of like an environmental scan to see what these eliminations would mean to our ability to do business and do business well. And then also any prioritizations. Were any of these more important than others to help you make a determination, this is what we need to do? My concern is, I just want to make sure that I focus my attention where it needs to be focused. If I were to say for instance, it was one that just caught my eye, eliminating state lobbyists and keep the federal lobbyists. Well, what exactly does that mean to the city? I mean, is that in diminishing our opportunities to get state funds? And why wasn't it the reverse? Why wasn't it, eliminating or reducing the contracting services of our federal? So I don't want to go to it. I'm concerned that this was, something that would be dire to us as far as operating is concerned, because really the only engagement I've had with lobbyists are the state ones, not the federal ones. So,
Councilmember Rogers,
yes,
if I may
ma'am.
just chime in really quickly before staff answers. Meeting that we had last was essentially my attempt to provide a framework for staff to kind of pull from, given that there was a little bit of difficulty trying to find cuts. So it was my effort of trying to suggest a concentrated effort of, here are these parameters, if you will, like try to figure out what you can do here, but it's not limited to just those parameters. So, for example, like staff could come back and say, hey, we found different parameters and propose those. And so just to refresh everybody's memory, it was my attempt at trying to find areas to help guide and move us along and make sure that we were accomplishing our objective of not fully adopting the 20-cent increase.
Thank you, Council. That what I was trying to understand, what differentiated, looking at those parameters, how did you prioritize? Which would make more sense than something else? So I appreciate the guidance because I thought it was excellent. Now we have to figure out how this fits into the guidance. Thank you.
There are a lot of painful decisions here in terms of when you're going through these expenses here. There are not a lot of contractual services that are offered across many of the departments. So you brought out about the lobbying. We have effectively a couple of lobbying contracts that we engage in, one being the state and one being federal. The reason why it was put for federal to be retained is because federal has been the one that has been productive in terms of generating resources from the city. Your comment in regards to what does that mean for our lobbying efforts at the state, that would diminish it. We would not have support. That would take the efforts of the city council and staff to directly interface with our legislators on the issues that were important to us. But just from a pure fiscal standpoint, in terms of what has generated a better fiscal return, not necessarily policy return from the city, it has been the federal.
So I just used that as an example. So you didn't use any type of what-if scenarios as you went through looking at, so I understand, I got this, and I'm going to go through it. I'm going to see which ones are reasonable, which ones aren't. But usually I go through a process. What if we take this away? What does this mean to the city? And so that's what I was looking for. Is there a what-if scenario that you use as part of your criteria to fit into the framework to give us this list that came up with, additional, looks like $1 million. But if you don't have that, that's fine. Then I look at this with a different slant as far as what you've provided.
So this is one of the challenges in regards to deciding the importance of what to keep and what not to keep associated with this. We have certain contracts that we have that are critical and essential. We must keep them and maintain them. I'll use a small one that has come about. During our special events, we have dollars that we have for contracts for ADA accessibility, and those funds are used when we have a person that is hard of hearing and they request an accommodation for a sign language interpreter. We have dollars included in the budget to be able to provide a sign language interpreter at our events. That is a expense that we have borne in the past. We will most certainly bear that in the future. So that would not get included in. That is not something that is discretionary. You go down and you take a look at where we have included eliminate the contract maintenance along Route 450 and along Route 197. In terms of desirability, I think that's highly desirable amongst the council, the staff, the community in regards to the aesthetic nature of those improvements. But much like the ADA accommodation that I just talked about, that is one that we do not have to do. So a lot of these ended up being things, must we do them? No, we must. We don't necessarily have to do them. We can choose not to. But that was sort of the basis of the decision. It's difficult to compare across different service categories.
I understand that. Everything that you're doing over the last several weeks is extremely difficult. That's why I push to find objective ways of getting there, because it's hard to remove the emotion out of the way to make a determination around what to cut. This is extremely difficult, and I get it, I understand it. But what makes it a bit easier, not easy, still difficult, but a bit more palatable, is when you use an objective criteria that will not move you to a decision around whether or not someone that cannot hear has someone to interpret for them versus picking up trash on 450. So that's all I'm asking. And I'm just putting it out in the universe so people can hear that, and this is for everybody in the room, that objective criteria in these scenarios help. It doesn't ease the pain much, but it does help come to conclusions that are viable, opportunities to cut that may be viable. And so that's all I'll say. And I thank you, and I thank everyone for putting forth the effort.
Well, let me share for a bit of perspective in terms of how we got to the things that were included in here, and this is certainly the majority of things that were included in here. At the beginning of March, had a staff meeting with all of the senior staff where I laid out the upcoming issues associated with the budget in regards to the insufficient revenue coming in associated with our expenditures that we have. And I tasked all of the departments to take a look at their budgets at department level into all the divisions, and I tasked them with contemplating services going out into the future with 20% less budget. All of the items included in here were things that were initially proposed by all of the departments for what a budget with 20% less budget was going to look like for their operations. So that initial objective criteria was the work of 20 different people taking a look at their operations, saying, what do I need? What must I have? What are the things that can possibly go and possibly be reduced? This was not fully exclusive of this list. I'll give an example of something that I added in here that was not part of that. Public Works had a lot of their expenses taking a look at changing some of their services in terms of the service delivery, and not as many in terms of some of the ongoing expenses. I had included from Public Works taking a look at the traffic studies and designs, and that was looking at a $60,000 reduction. That was an item that had been included in the budget, increased by $60,000 this year over last year. And that was specifically increased in this budget to be responsive to the City Council and its concerns in regards to understanding neighborhood traffic concerns, and Dr. On's efforts in regards to being better prepared for understanding the traffic flows on our neighborhood streets and what was going on. So that was one that I added in to get a breadth of choice for the City Council, because it was something that we had not done in the past and it was new. So that was the only reason why that was proposed, not because it wasn't important, just because it was new compared to what we were doing. So lots of different criteria going into the evaluation of these.
Thank you.
And to Councilmember Rogers' point, I mean, there's some things in here that I'm looking at largely kind of subjective, where, you know, we might be able to give a thumbs up, thumbs down. There's a lot of stuff in here, though, like some of the events where I suspect my colleagues would be very interested in seeing, you know, for instance, like the International Festival. How many people does that serve? What kind of revenue does that generate? What's the, you know, what's the cost benefit there? And so what I might propose is that all these things are something that we can take up in our ongoing sessions that'll come up in the future, where we kind of take a look at these in more detail and start getting exactly, as you say, council members, some of that cost benefit. Council member Ndebumandu.
Thank you so much, Mayor Estev. I agree completely, and we'll definitely take a more copious look at this. The one request I do have is Acting City Manager Mears, can you reach out to County Council Member Adams' office, and can you just kind of ask the status of some of our budget requests to kind of see where things are falling and just get a sentiment? I think that will guide some of the decision making. I know one of the major items that's on this particular reduction list was one of the items that we asked for. So if you could just kind of get some feelers out there. We'll also make some phone calls, but it's nice to have the city formally follow up as well. That's my only request. Thank you.
We will do that. And I know that that is a project that's very important for the City Council, but it is solely on there because of that specific request. Thank you.
Any of my other colleagues on this particular
So If we do not have any of these ultimately accepted tonight, what will happen is the budget is going to get presented to you all next Thursday, including all of these. This does not mean that we cannot make a decision not to do it in the future. So certainly some things have contracts associated with them, so if we're making a decision now to not renew a contract, but we don't make that decision until 3 months from now, we may forego that opportunity to not engage in that contract. It was mentioned about, the International Festival. That was one of any number of different events that you could take a look at and make a judgment call in regards to whether or not that one be included or not. If there's a decision not to have a particular event in the city in the future, that decision can be made later, and we can pull back on one of those to reduce cost.
Wonderful. Any other thoughts, colleagues? Okay. I'm going to first ask one quick question, then we're going to move into a kind of a final portion where I open it up to my colleagues. I see Director Spurgeon here. Hello, sir. I know that several of us heard from our friends on the Old Bowie Celebrates Festival Planning Committee. They proposed a pared-down budget of $21,000. I just want to make sure we were on the same page as far as facts, though. One of the things I know that we talked about is either encouraging that group to go out and find their own sponsors to put on the event, or possibly have city staff take it on as an internally run event. If you don't have the answer tonight, that's quite all right. I just happened to see you sitting there, and we're kind of transitioning neatly into the next discussion. So might I ask staff if you have any early thoughts on what it might look like if city personnel take over the event? Is that something you'd be in a position to do this year if we so direct, or would it need to happen next year? Kind of where are we?
So we did review the budget that was submitted, the revised budget from the Old Bowie Celebrates group. I'd like to point out that they did hard work with getting it down half, but that is still twice the expense of our most expensive event that we do. They also mentioned that there would be a smaller cost center associated with staff. The staffing impact, the overtime impact is how I interpret that. But they're still talking about a stage on Maple and a stage down by the St. John, so the footprint hasn't changed, which means the maintenance, the police, the security, the public works, so on and so forth. We're talking about probably a $15,000 to $20,000 additional dollars in staff. That hasn't changed. How I would envision a internally city-run event would be likely on one side of the bridge, would be a smaller footprint, less cost from a security, it'd probably be on the Railroad Museum side, where we already own the property, so we don't have to pay for lease space, so on and so forth. It'd be a much smaller activity. As far as could that happen this year, it could.
And to be clear, you'd be talking footprint-wise, like 14th Street in Old Bowie, Chestnut Road closed up to the museum, and then having that just one kind of line.
That one little street, yeah, the one street right there, over underneath by the playground,
right.
Under the bridge by the playground, taking advantage of a lot of the space that the city already owns,
okay.
And keeping the State Highway Bridge open as well.
Understood. And then as far as parking, would you, again, we're getting so into the weeds, but would you encourage parking at the city lot on the north side of the bridge with like walkways, or would you still do parking at like Rockledge with a shuttle?
So this is the hard truth of this event. There's no convenient parking that doesn't impact the neighbors.
Right.
The adjacent community. People have to park in the streets. If you're going to get 2,000, 3,000 people to show up at this event, there's no place to park, which means it relies on shuttle parking and the cost associated with that.
Roger.
So bus transportation.
Okay. Have you made contact with the Old Bowie Celebrates group beyond the previous communications, like the earlier ones I saw?
Just the email communications that we've.
Understood.
Yeah.
Can you do me a favor, Director, and follow up with Dan Mears and I tomorrow, and let's just circle back and communicate with the group, and let's see if we can't get on the same page.
Yes, sir.
How we want to proceed with that. Okay. And I'll talk to my colleagues separately, see what we can do. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I also realize I may have actually skipped over something. Mr. Mears, did you want to review recurring vendor contract savings, or is this just more for our reading?
The first side of the sheet that you have was the contractual services. The next item down was taking a look at economic development contractual services, which was specifically called for in regards to $250,000 reduction, taking a look at prioritization from advertising and promotional spending. And then also the next item was a restriction of 50% of the remaining economic development advertising, the advertising line, until council receives measurable objectives for business attraction, retention, redevelopment, commercial occupancy, and non-residential tax base. So the other side of the sheet includes the dollars that Mr. King put together associated with reductions in advertising, professional services, subscriptions, travel, et cetera. So welcome to discuss that.
And I think I can safely preempt my colleagues by saying this similarly is going to be an area where we may want to have a more detailed separate conversation about the cost benefit of each individual line item. I'm seeing a lot of nodding up on the dais. Okay. So I think we'll take this up in future sessions where we kind of go into more detail about, all right, we spent, we're proposing $29,000 reduction in the retail advertising. What have we gotten for that advertising? What has it looked like so far, et cetera? Okay, cool. Seeing consensus from my colleagues. Thank you, staff.
All right, the next item in terms of the list was taking a look at discretionary printing, mail, and physical advertising reduction. It was to establish a 25% reduction target for discretionary printing. Talking with the staff in regards to that, we did not feel that there was anything additional that we had for that. That was the first night included in the $5.7 million that we had already gone thoroughly in regards to what we could reduce in regards to our postage and our printing associated with that. So we did not feel we had any more beyond what was already agreed to, and the council actually put a few $1,000s back into that from that first discussion.
Question, Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mears, that doesn't include the conversation we had tonight about the water bills, does it? No.
No, we have to pay for those. So those were not included. So we do have a lot of postage that we still do that is required to have.
Postage and printing, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right, got you. Thank you.
Any other questions from any of my colleagues?
And the last item on the list was in regards to recurring vendor contract savings target to establish a contract savings target of 5% across eligible SaaS, software subscription and service contracts, excluding cybersecurity, public safety, legally required systems, and core operational platforms. So we had, on the first night that we had gone through this, staff had proposed a little over $90,000 in cuts associated with the IT budget, which the council had taken a look at, and we did have correspondence included in your packet associated with the items of software that were non-core in terms of not being essential for our operations in terms of the cybersecurity, et cetera. And I'm moving pieces of paper here. You've got the total amount in terms of what that was.
The total was $1,155.
Essentially, 5% of the remainder was just a little over $1,000 in software. I have it here. Yeah, so staff identified costs of $23,100 in non-cyber core related softwares that we have.
Councilmember Indibu Madhu.
I appreciate this particular, it was not solely based on information technology, but across the board, because it also includes service contracts in general. So I'm still going to push that the target stands. You might have already identified it, but definitely still going to push that the target itself stands.
Understood. And so I'm seeing as I look through 155, the total 23,100. But what I'm seeing in the actual proposed eliminations is about 24,000 in cuts, and these represent software across departments. I'm seeing one for Youth and Family Services, one for Historic Properties.
No, those are not proposed cuts, not at all. Those are those are software that are used by our departments, active throughout the regular course of business. We do not propose cutting those.
Gotcha. Why are they listed here?
This is the software that is things that were deemed not related to cybersecurity, non-core services. So, our financial ERP system was not included. All our cybersecurity, network-related contracts, all of those things were not included here in terms of the target. This is the remainder of software that falls outside of that. So this is the software that helps us keep track of our street trees and how the health that they're in. It keeps track of, let's see, we've got here a Zoom contract associated with our youth services to meet HIPAA requirements, and that is in place. It's another one we have. Historic Properties software. All of those are actively used by our staff. We do not propose cutting those.
Roger that. So this is simply delineation of what's included in the 23,100 that falls outside of what's mandated, essentially.
Yes.
What's outside what must be done. Okay, understood. Gotcha. Okay, and then I see you also helpfully kind of include the trade-offs with these particular software reductions, like the risks that would potentially be introduced. Okay. Do any of my colleagues have any additional questions or thoughts on any of these? Okay. All right. In that case, I will consider us having been informed on this. Anything else from staff?
That is all we have for you this evening.
Wonderful. I know that several of my colleagues had specific items they wanted to raise tonight. I will start with Councilmember Ende Bumandu.
Thank you so much, Mayor Stev. My items are in the realm of additional budget objectives to be added to the budget. Is this the appropriate time that you'd like me to propose those for discussion? Yeah. Okay, perfect. So there are just a bit of them, and then I've got two questions. One is for Public Works, and the other is for Economic Development. So I'll start with the objectives. The first objective is to add a City Council FY27 objective, and that objective would be for myself and my colleagues, and the objective is develop and begin implementation of a strategic economic development and redevelopment plan focused on commercial tax-based growth, aging shopping-centered redevelopment, business retention, city-owned land opportunities, and reoccurring revenue diversification. So I'll pause there, Mayor Stev, and see if you just want me to go down the list, or what's the appropriate format you'd like?
Let's take it one at a time. I don't have any particular questions on this objective, and I think it's pretty consistent with what we as a body have discussed before. Any particular thoughts or questions on an objective that the City Council work on economic development strategy, including redevelopment and new commercial opportunities? Nope.
I've got a question. Are there any resources that are needed? Is this just going to be a work product of the City Council based on you meeting and discussing, or is this something where you want to have some facilitation or some consultants to help guide this economic development strategy?
My sense is that this is going to be mostly us meeting and talking, and that we don't need any costs associated with this.
Right, and so you sent us. Now this is just for us to actually go through that and put some pen to paper and put some things in writing.
Totally fair. So no cost.
The next objective is falls within the realm of communications, IT, city manager, and finance department. So it is a co-departmental objective, and that objective is launch a resident-facing budget transparency dashboard showing major budget drivers, tax rate impacts, fund balance status, capital project status, and implementation of council-adopted budget reductions.
This is also very consistent with what I know. We would probably need some information on cost implications related to this. We have put some money aside to do some software updates, but I understand that that's potentially looking at a 1 to 2 year implementation, possibly. Is there any universe where we could try and make that an objective this year, or what does staff think about that?
So I think the initial thought is from the prior discussion that we were looking to get more information and more analytical tools out of our budget process, as well as to help with some automation. It would take a full budget cycle in order for that software, even if it has a public-facing component to it, to step forward. I think we're going to need to look at what information we currently have and that we develop to see if we can make some progress towards this goal. But certainly understand the desire to be more transparent associated with it. Mr. Miller, do you have anything to add?
Statements in that, the other things that you mentioned would be very, very helpful. Unfortunately, our infrastructure right now isn't designed per se to capture that, so it's really some tweaking relative to capturing those numbers. Well, also, what is it that as an entity we want to provide, guidance on that? So I think, we may be able to make baby steps, but the real impact won't be met until fiscal year 28.
Mr. Mayor, here's my concern. I think the reoccurring theme that we did hear throughout the listening sessions once you became mayor, and the feedback that I've received from District 4, and I'm sure my other colleagues in their districts as well, has been clear that a lot of constituents want more engagement with the budget process and a lot more transparency of the budget process itself. Not saying that we're not being transparent, but in a digestible format to them. And so my concession is, if you can create an objective that is like what is that baby step, and create it as an objective for FY27, because I don't think that transparency action can afford to wait another year.
And if I may,
of course.
There's a lot of things that we could do, for example, on Excel platforms that we already have. There's going to be other things like a dashboard type activity that's going to be, we're going to have to do data mining, define what that data mining is, be able to do that on a consistent basis. So, this is the kind of stuff I love, so we can definitely move forward with it. But it's, I think the critical piece is, let's be clear as to what we want to accomplish, so that we set mutual expectations and there won't be any disappointment in the long run.
Absolutely. If you can follow up with council on what that objective, that new updated objective would be this week. And I find that we've got a lot of talented and very skilled folks in our IT department. So I would definitely encourage you to work together as one to figure out what that objective should look like. And I will expect to hear that from you guys this week. My next objective, and I want to come back to some points that you made, Mr. Miller, but my next objective is for human resources. It is to add an FY27 human resources objective that implements a formal succession planning and exit interview program to identify workforce risks, institutional knowledge gaps, retention issues, and cross-training opportunities. I will pause on that one.
So previous objective, I think we had consensus on that. Just want to be clear about the dashboard and the quality. And from staff's response, it sounds like we've got some spreadsheets, and I know that that's specifically something that some residents have asked. So it sounds like we may have in our possession things that would already be useful for residents for next year.
Or be able to create
easily.
Timely basis.
Great, sorry. So just want to be clear.
They're going to work together and come back to us on what the new objective will be.
All right, great. So council member, I apologize. Go ahead.
It's okay. The next one was around succession planning and exit interview program. So pretty much formalizing that. So when employees are leaving the city, formalizing an exit interview process, and when and also implementing succession planning so that we have workforce mobility.
Okay. We have a number of elements included in the strategic plan with stratification of positions, and I think a lot of that lends itself into some of the succession planning work. I think we can work towards that.
Okay.
So no concerns from staff then? And as far as interviews go, we're comfortable implementing those? Email us this week. On Councilman, and sorry, just staff, chiefs. Consensus from council colleagues? Okay, seeing nods, great.
Okay, so I'll second human resources objective and then go to IT and come back to that one because it lends to this next objective. Okay, so add an FY27 information technology objective, to develop a citywide systems integration modernization master plan to assess the city's current technology systems, data flows, software applications, cloud platforms, departmental workflows, and interoperability gaps. The plan should create a phased modernization roadmap that improves system integration, strengthens data collection, reduces duplicative platforms, supports operational efficiency across departments, and establishes the technical foundation for future smart cities capabilities and external grant competitiveness. I will just add a brief explanation as to why I think this is very, very critical and relevant. Mr. Miller, you kind of just walked right into this one for me when you talked about the systems and the isolation and some of the infrastructure. And so that being one point. And then the second is the state, the county, and the federal government are all moving towards integrated, secure, measurable digital government. The county is building innovation labs as recently launched in their FY26 to 28 OIT modernization roadmap. The state of Maryland is modernizing digital government and investing in cyber and AI workforce capacity. Bowie's current challenge is that our systems do not yet talk to each other. So I am proposing this as a roadmap because we've talked a lot about smart cities. We know there's a lot of external funding, but in having conversations with our IT department, what I realize is there's a critical gap that we have where we have to get to systems integrations modernization before we can ever get to smart cities. We have to collect data from the right sources. I know City Manager Mears, you've talked about our data collection at length with me. So this is going to be very critical from an infrastructure perspective for us to get to the next phase and actually modernize our city systems to make sure they actually talk to one another and that we can pull data efficiently and easily. Now, I'll pause there and add, this does have a financial impact associated with it. The two impacts that it associated with it, even though I am recommending, I am also prepared to recommend cuts as well. The two impacts that it has associated with it is that it will require 1 FTE. The reason why is that it would need to hire a systems integration and modernization analyst to support citywide systems integration and implementation of systems integration modernization master plan. The position would support technology inventory, data collection, workflow mapping, cloud platform coordination, interoperability planning, vendor coordination, smart cities readiness, and grant-aligned modernization projects. In FY27, the role may prioritize public works modernization where asset management, infrastructure data, street lighting, traffic management, public safety, and workflow efficiency needs are most immediate while supporting broader citywide modernizations across departments. So that's the FTE it would require. There's a software also requirement as well because we would need to also acquire cloud data management to support this modernization effort. What that cloud data management would be is to support foundational systems integration work, including migration of the city's Microsoft Access databases to Azure SQL and scheduled data extraction pipelines for all of these data sources that we use that I will not name into a centralized cloud storage layer. This request would include an estimated $61,250 $250 in annual reoccurring cloud/data management costs, and $26,625 in one-time FY27 setup costs. The investment supports the Systems Integration Modernization Master Plan by beginning the foundational data movement needed for unified reporting, future enterprise dashboards, data governance, cybersecurity monitoring, advanced analytics, and future smart city readiness. That was a lot, so I will pause, and I have just to let my colleagues know, I have connected with our IT department on this particular objective as well. So if you have any questions, I'll pause at this time.
Any questions or reactions?
Mr. Peterson, this is a significant
that are not connected at this time. So one thing I always ask is, what is Bowie's truth? So if we have different pots of data that are that we're collecting, and one pot has, Mr. Mayor, your address as 12345 Duck Lane, and the other pot has it as 5678 Bird Lane, which one is true? And right now we can't say what that is. So we need to do some work to get all of our data in one pot so that we can make sure that that data is clean.
And can you repeat, what was the total budget impact of this particular request? It was one FT.
The software cost was a reoccurring cost estimate of $61,250, and a setup cost of $26,625. The FTE, the range of that FTE, just from my research, would be about $84,000 to $130,000, median being around $104,000 for that particular FTE.
Okay. Do any of my colleagues have any questions on this particular one? No questions. Councilman Brady.
Back in about $175,000.
That's what it would look like.
And what are we offsetting it by?
You would also have benefits associated with that, so I think you're looking a little closer to 2. Also have on that as well, so I think you're looking a little closer to 200.
200,000.
So, council member, you might have proposed a particular one. I wouldn't have an issue from the money that would be available to us from other cuts, but are there any proposed offsets that you wanted to throw out there?
Not right now, tonight. I'm happy to follow up with my colleagues individually, and because I like to be very precise in where I'm coming from so that you have a section to refer to. So I'm happy to follow up with my colleagues individually. What I will say is the reason why I am recommending we start in Public Works, because we know Public Works is a behemoth, and if we are talking about we want to cut costs eventually, we need to get to a certain level of efficiency, and the infrastructure aspect of getting to efficiency is very critical right now. And you have a county and a state that are all moving towards modernization very aggressively. The state implemented modernization in 2025, so we are now in 2026, and the county is very clear on their modernization roadmap, which is moving quite aggressively with them projecting to be finished their entire modernization flow by 2028. And so this is quite critical for us to be able to move forward and really actually get to smart cities and get the competitive grants. We just need the infrastructure layer that we just don't have right now.
Okay.
Real quickly.
Councilman Brady.
$1,000 isn't to say that the intent isn't good. I commend my colleague with bringing it forward. I'm just concerned that we seem to be continuing in our habit that we've been for the last several weeks with regards to managing the numbers. So I don't have a problem with moving forward with it, but I think we need to be careful that we do it in a phased and proper approach and make sure we offset it where possible.
Understood.
Mr. Mayor? Thank you. When I hear about initiatives like this, it moves me to thinking about long-term strategies and long-term savings. And this would be part of a project initiative that may start now, recognizing we're at a level whereby we have to cut budget. But over the period, whatever the X period of time is, there should be some visibility around savings. So it's more than looking at here and now. It's more aligned to looking at what the future may look like based on the initiative and the strategy. So because we don't do strategy planning or long-term planning sitting up here, we can't sit here and say, I'm going to invest $1 million this year, but in year 3, I see my return on investment, which may be, $5 million or $10 million. We don't have that data available to us. But that's something that we really need to keep in the back of our minds, because as long as we look at things tactically, and we do as a city, that's how we look at things tactically, what's happening here and now, what may happen next year. As long as we think that way, we'll move that way. So to me, it's very important, or actually critical, to look at things in a longer term to see where is your break-even point before you even make a decision about moving in that direction. Where do I break even, and when do I start seeing my savings? Because I know right now we're in a fiscal, basically, bottleneck. So when will we break out of it? So I just ask the staff and my colleagues to consider more around long-term. Right now it doesn't look like it's possible or feasible. But until somebody sits down and put pen to paper and look at what anything anybody is saying up here and see where that break-even point is, we're kind of operating in the dark or in the blind. And so therefore, if you're risk averse, you're not willing to move forward and operate in the blind or in the dark. So I just ask people to kind of consider, as we've said several times, this is a culture change, a change in the way we do business, and a change in the way we think about the initiatives that we work on. So we always have to look at things longer term just to see what value we can get out of the propositions that we're proposing up here, because I'm going to come up with a couple myself. I just want to toil the soil a little bit. So you'd start thinking, a little bit outward rather than here and now. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just add in an additional one as well for this, which kind of dovetails into my next objective. I'll just read the objective, but I'll come back to this particular point because I think it goes really nicely. It is a human resources objective, and basically this objective is basically to establish a workforce role modernization and talent redevelopment initiative to evaluate how existing positions across departments can evolve in response to technology, operational needs, service delivery changes, and future workforce demands. The initiative would identify opportunities to retrain, reclassify, consolidate, or repurpose roles into higher value functions that align with employee skill sets and the city's modernization priorities. Where appropriate, the city would consider adjusted classifications or compensation changes when expanded responsibilities reduce the need for additional hiring or outside support. So in my conversations with IT, what I really learned was one of their kind of transitional stories around one of their employees that now transitioned into another role. I'll let Todd kind of share a little bit more about that work, because I think these are the opportunities that we do need to highlight and create a little bit more throughout the city. So my intent with this role, yes, we might need to hire externally, but there also might be somebody really great in the city that, might want to take on this role and might want to transition into a newer opportunity. So Todd, can you talk a little bit more about what your department did?
Sure. When I first started, admins in I personally don't work. Need admins. I don't need my phone. I answer my own phone. I do my own emails. I can make my own travel plans and all that stuff. It was just not how I worked. So I had to figure out what was I going to do with these folks. And so one of them had a real interest in GIS, and so I allowed her to get training. I sent her to GIS conferences, and now, rather than being she was a part-time employee, now she's a full-time employee, but she's doing GIS work, where she wasn't doing that before. She was an admin. My other employee, while we had some antiquated systems, we upgraded those systems, and now that particular employee is able to do auditing and asset management and ticket deployment and things that she was not doing before. And so her entire role has pretty much changed. And so rather than keeping them in the same place, it opened the door for them to have other opportunities to get promoted and not have to go out to find these folks. I was able to use the folks that I had on my team to do higher level functions.
So in that particular case, we're talking about her position and creating more value add for your department from kind of what you're describing it.
Yes.
And it sounds like what the council member is proposing is that we come up with an HR objective where we try and do this across more departments.
Just identify, create an opportunity to be able to have the framework more departments.
Understood. Is there a particular, well, let's start with this. This is an HR ask, so we could do one of a couple things. We can give Mr. Haley the opportunity to kind of get back to us in writing this week with any initial thoughts he might have about what would be feasible. Depending on our HR department's feedback, we might be able to either let stand exactly as you propose this particular objective, or even get maybe even more specific if there's something we need to adopt or potentially cost associated with this. Would you be comfortable with that?
That's perfect.
All right. So staff will give you guys an opportunity to get back to us with thoughts on this, and if there is a financial implication, we can discuss it on the 18th.
All right, very good.
And then,
Wonderful.
Mr. Mayor, I'll come back on the information technology objective. One is the objective for the modernization plan itself. So that's just a standalone objective for staff to create a modernization plan that's phased.
Yeah, so for the modernization plan, staff. No. Okay. So I don't think I hear any objections to the modernization plan, not seeing any from up here, so I think that one's good to go. On the cost one, synthesizing some of the feedback I'm getting from some of my colleagues, it sounds like we may be open to looking at that specifically on the 18th, but folks want to have a little bit of time to synthesize potential offsets that we could look at to make it feasible, if any are found or desirable before the 18th. And that seems to be the consensus that I've gotten on the dais, that we'll come back to this on the 18th and have some time to think about cuts in the meantime.
In the meantime, do you need something from staff for that?
If there are you want to have happen on the 18th, you will have a budget that is presented to you that is not going to include those. Effectively, anything that we don't hear tonight, we're not going to have in the draft budget. So it will need to be taken care of through a future budget amendment in terms of removing or adding things in. So this one came with a position and software costs associated with that. If we don't put that in tonight, we will need to add it in through a budget amendment later. We're not going to have the ability to do this on the fly on Monday night.
I understand. If we were to do it through a future budget amendment, we would have to take the money out of essentially the reserve fund to make it happen.
Correct.
Okay, understood. Councilmember Rogers, I apologize.
Yeah. On what's been presented, let's figure out what's reasonable, what's manageable for this fiscal year, because I know you heard a lot, and then I think that helps you kind of overcome being overwhelmed with a lot to do. Just look at the manageable chunks, and I think the first part around the technology modernization plan is like a manageable chunk. It doesn't require additional resources. It requires some time to sit down and think about what it is, right? And then it allows you to keep moving forward. Particularly over the next, several weeks. I think that I don't have a problem with doing a budget amendment as long as we see where we're going, and it's something that can be managed in chunks without, a lot of additional resources. And then we have more time to look to see where those resources could come from. That's all. Thank you. Thank you,
Mr. Mayor, if I may just. What I'm being mindful of. We are so behind from an infrastructure perspective. We are behind. Like, we don't have the time to wait. That's number one. Number two is, I didn't come up with this out of nowhere. It was done in consultation with staff. That's number two. Number three is, I have been probably the most vocal member up here about these specific cuts being recommended. And so it's not as if I'm looking to just add constantly things to the budget. It's one critical mission, critical thing that we need because our data infrastructure isn't there, which has actually cost us, not cost us in terms of physical dollars, but missed opportunities. We are in a posture where we cannot harness opportunities because we don't have the accurate data flows. We just talked about not being able to do a transparency dashboard because we don't have interoperable data systems. And so the need is becoming quite clear in terms of where we're missing. So it's not that I'm just looking to add FTEs. I'm the first one to tell you to downsize a little bit. But it's more about, we need this data. We need it now. We need it today. We need it imperatively so that we can be able to harness and take advantage of all of the other opportunities that we are missing because we don't even have the data to reference. And maybe it might be helpful for Dr. Ahn to talk a little bit more about his systems in Public Works. But if Public Works is the bulk of the budget and we're talking about cost savings over time, efficiency starts somewhere. And it starts with how you collect data, how the systems talk to each other, and how you're able to make informed decisions or reduce the manual load that you have on your workforce so they're not spending time going into system A to system B to system C to system Z, and then, oh, by the way, can you go down the hall and ask them to print that one report? Oh, let me now add it all to a spreadsheet and see if I can maybe come up with something. We're the city of Bowie. We should not be doing that anymore. So that's my point in terms of we can kick this down the road, but that doesn't help us. The modernization plan is what it is. We already have a smart cities framework. So we're already far advanced when it comes to what we want to do. Now we need the plan to give the phased approach to all of the departments on how we get there. And this systems analyst will allow us to now start to consolidate all of our data into one manageable system so that we have interoperability across the board. So when it is time to give our constituents transparency, or when it is time to do traffic studies, we don't have to go contract out for maybe $25,000 to $50,000 per study, or we don't have to now say, well, we can't do a transparency dashboard because the systems don't talk to each other. That's why this is critical. So I would prefer, if there are questions that you need answered, to maybe ask the staff so the questions get answered and you have clarity. And if you need to take some days, then do that. Feel free to ask me questions, feel free to ask questions. But to say we'll come back to this at a later time to bring staff back to answer the very same questions that they're here and prepared to answer tonight, I don't think is the right step. And I don't think that's fair, given how many budget cuts I've specifically gone through this budget and recommended so that we can all reach our shared goals.
Just one point of clarity. So staff said that they could do this. Is that what I heard? The time frame. If so, I mean.
Say we can do this, what specifically are
You can
saying?
do what this initiative involves, and you can do it right away. I mean, you can get it done quickly.
The master plan, as Councilmember Ndebe Madu said, we do have a smart cities framework, and this master plan would be a forward movement of that framework. Mm-hmm. After that is done, I can't imagine, that's not going to take a year to do. But so if we had that person in place, that FTE in place, we would be able to take action in 27 as opposed to
Okay, that's what I needed clarity on. All right, thank you.
Particular item, The plan. Seeing consensus that we will discuss this on the 18th and do this via budget amendment. People still have some outstanding questions, and I'll let folks follow up with staff. And sounds good.
I'll move on to my next point. Thank you. Since I didn't hear what you actually need, I don't have any financial anything to recommend to this body, since it doesn't sound like you need anything from me. You just need to ponder. So I'll leave that with you. The next statement is on the FY Sustainability Program Supplement. It is for the Planning Department, and then I'll come back to Public Works. Sorry, it was next on my list. On page 135, there's an HOA technical assistance bucket. The technical assistance bucket, it gives about $5,000 it's funding assistance for 2 HOAs at $5,000 each to design plant ecological landscaping on HOA property to reduce impacts of stormwater and support wildlife habitat. Let me ask you just really quickly, are the 2 HOAs for that program identified? My question is just specifically in regards to page 135. It is for the supplemental, the program, sustainability program supplements under HOA Association technical assistance, funding for assisting 2 HOAs at $5,000 to design plant ecological landscaping, etc. The 2 HOAs, have they been selected already?
No, they haven't.
Okay. So now my follow-up question in regards to that, or you might not have the answer tonight, but there's a community in District 4, Devonshire. In Devonshire, there is kind of like, I believe it to be a stormwater section. It's very big in that community. It might not be, but I would like clarification if it is. If it is indeed what I think it is, then I would like to submit that as one of the HOAs for that technical assistance from District 4. And it's completely okay if you don't have the answer today.
I don't have the answer for that today, but I can work with Public Works and we can look at get more information on the area that you're talking about and see if what was intended for kind of this assistance.
Yes, if you can, and just get back to this body on that, especially myself. The community is called Devonshire, and once you go in there, it's quite large, so you'll be able to see it. I don't have the direct intersections right now. So I'll leave that. That was my only question for planning. Okay, now I'll go back to my question in Public Works. Okay, so for Public Works, my question is, Dr. Ahn, are you prepared to provide a FY27 road striping schedule or commitment, including priority corridors, school zones, high traffic areas, faded lane markings, crosswalks, and any other safety related striping needs?
Councilwoman, we should be able to provide you the list of striping for upcoming fiscal year. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. And can you make sure when that list is provided that it does cross-reference the priority roads that were sent by members of this council, but particularly this question is really for me in District 4?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. That would be great. And then also in that list, kind of what I'm looking for, you may already kind of have this kind of roped up, but I'm looking for the schedule and the prioritization criteria that was used for the schedule. So that's kind of like what I'm looking for. Awesome. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That's my question for Public Works. I'll move on to my economic development question.
Sorry, while we have Public Works there, how much money have we? Past discussions, we understood that was a much larger amount of money than we originally anticipated. I just want to make sure we're not accidentally committing to something that.
DPW is requesting $153,000 for striping.
And about how much street would we be able to stripe for that amount of money? Do we have a rough ballpark? If you don't have the exact answer tonight, you can email us. I just want to make sure that we're not committing to something that we don't have enough money for. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Understood. Thank you, Dr. Hahn. Sorry. Councilmember, thank you for letting me follow up with that.
Thank on road striping schedules. Okay, next question is for economic development. My question is, can staff explain the distinct role of the 0.5 FTE economic development marketing specialist compared to the $333,000 advertising line? What outcomes are expected from the internal marketing role? What outcomes are expected from the advertising spend? And how will council know whether either is producing measurable economic development value?
The part-time marketing position strategy that you have received. I believe you a staff report here about 2 weeks ago. That strategy that the original advertising budget submitted for 27 was developed. So that person would be implementing the marketing strategy. Some items of measurability are within that strategy. Additional items would be developed as that person goes through the implementation.
And the advertising spend outcomes?
Advertising spend current year gets phone calls by the people who lease the vacant space. In future years, coming in FY27, the outcomes will be developed as we implement the marketing strategic plan. So I don't have that list of outcomes right now. I simply have the funding that was inferred from that plan that we have received. So as part of the spend, we would be developing the outcomes, selecting the placements, making the placements, and measuring the return from those placements.
Okay, I think I might be having cognitive dissonance, or I'm not understanding the answer. So I understand what you've framed as the outcomes that are expected from the internal marketing role, which are to implement the marketing strategy. I'm trying to understand how those two things differ, because you have a pocket of advertising spend, and then there's a marketing role, and advertising is part of marketing to some degree. So I'm trying to differentiate here on the money.
Under my guidance as the director responsible for all, this person's task will be spending that money and adding to what is not in the marketing strategy those items of measurement that we will need to ensure that the spending is achieving the results that the marketing strategy and plan suggests we should be getting. So you've got money to spend and a person to spend it. Those are the two components.
Okay, can you please follow up with this body and provide performance metrics for both marketing specialist function and the advertising budget? And what I would like included in there is the campaign objectives and target audiences from those particular performance metrics.
We can certainly add that as a budget objective as we go forward. That information doesn't exist now because I don't have the person doing the work.
Okay, but I'm trying to I understand you're saying you're hiring a person, and then that person is then being paid to spend the money that we are then allocating for them to execute. And so I'm just trying to understand what those indicators will be, because of course in your mind you have a target that this person, beyond just spending the budget of money that they would be getting, would have some sort of metrics to meet, and this money has an objective and a return, a projected return associated with this money. And I'm trying to get into what that is.
No, you're very clear. What I'm saying is nobody's doing that measurement right now. That measurement will be done when we fill the marketing specialist role.
Okay, so let me ask a follow-up question. How did you determine how much money that you needed for advertising?
I used some best practice estimates from the marketing plan, which laid out a budget.
And that plan would do what exactly?
It laid out the budget. It did not have performance measures. It identified certain concepts, certain placements, and certain areas in which they recommend we place our marketing message. So we've just received that plan, and now we're moving into implementing it. We have not implemented it yet.
Okay, can you speak to some of those activities?
The future activities?
Correct.
I'm not prepared to do that tonight, no.
Can you follow up with this body on those activities?
I sent you a marketing plan 2 weeks ago.
Does that mean you can't resend it or follow up with this body?
I'd be delighted to resend it. I'll do it by individual email this time.
Sounds good, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions on economic development? I'll pause.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Go into my last area. It's just a question for Public Works. I'm done with economic development at this time. I don't have any further questions.
A clarifying one from me back to you then. You have proposed an objective about economic development. Are you no longer requesting that we add that?
That is true. I did propose an objective. Thank you for highlighting that. But I don't necessarily think this objective might be for economic development, because I don't necessarily think we can do this at this time. Let me pivot to Acting City Manager Mears. There has been conversation, I know I reached out to you in terms of exploring a vacancy tax at our shopping centers for our shopping center owners, but if I'm understanding correctly, that is not something that the city is able to pursue at this time, given the structure. If you could speak to that a little bit more.
Certainly, there is the availability to establish different classes of property in the tax code. I think there was specific legislation passed 2 years ago for the city of Baltimore, allowing them to establish a category of vacancy for their taxation. We would need to establish a category, have it be defensible, have it be accepted by the State Department of Assessments and Taxations before we would be able to apply that to establishing a vacancy tax.
Okay, thank you. So basically summing up, not something we can pursue within this next year, really?
This would not be applicable for this fiscal year. We would have to work towards that to the next tax year.
Okay, sounds good. And what type of action would you need to see from us during the year to explore that potential avenue?
So what we would need to do is we would need to work with the Department of Assessments and Taxation to see whether or not we could apply that category, and talk with the council to see if that category is attaching itself to the correct properties that you're looking for, so that we can then make a determination in regards to what that taxation level would be.
Thank you so much, Acting City Manager Mears. Just for District 4 residents that are watching out there, essentially coming out of a meeting last week that some of me and my colleagues had, it was recommended that we potentially explore a vacancy tax on some of our shopping centers as a potential method to collect new revenues and also ensure that our shopping centers are not sitting vacant and we are not incentivizing a particular type of engagement patterns with those that are in the city, and that engagement pattern is essentially not affecting what we are looking to see kind of come out of that behavior pattern. So just for those who are watching, that's kind of a further detailed breakdown as to what that question is in regards to. So it looks like it would not apply as an economic development budget objective at this time.
Not at this time. And if you're looking at it specifically associated with shopping centers would be one tax account that's in place. So typically a shopping center has multiple tenants and variable vacancy associated with that. So that would be a blunt tool associated with shopping centers.
Duly noted. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
I'm going to interrupt. It wouldn't be just shopping centers, but all business properties and anything that's out there that's in derelict shape. The idea is to improve the look and feel, not just including productivity and aesthetics of the properties that are in the cities, to ensure that we're not looking like it's blighted, and that we've got that going, which to me is more than just shopping centers. It could be, light industry, it could be office space, it could be a vacant property, it could be anything along those lines.
That is correct. My original budget objective was for it's not limited to that, but that is, so that's why I was clarifying.
Thank you, Councilman. Policy as we go into our own council-imposed objective, economic development activity. One thing I will just caution, not endorsing or opposing the policy, is just we're going to need to be really thoughtful and surgical, because one of the challenges that we often see in Bowie beyond vacancies is more business quality. And so if we create a disincentive to let a property be vacant for a time, we are creating an incentive to fill vacancies quickly. And that may have some unintended consequences. There's some situations where vacant property is preferable to getting a type of business that we might not love. But that's a trade-off worth discussing as we kind of have this conversation going forward.
I would agree. Open windows, it's not been utilized productively in the last 9 months, or pick a time frame, whatever.
Carrots and sticks.
Yes, indeed.
All right.
Okay.
With regards to the raised issue about the vacancy tax, that was House Bill 2 from the 2024 legislative session that expanded the ability to do that for Baltimore City and counties. And it's an interesting, in their fiscal note, there's a statement here. It says, unlike state and county governments, municipalities have broad discretion to impose property tax rates on different classes of property. Municipalities may impose property taxes on those classes of property that it selects to be subject to the municipal tax, property tax. So what I would suggest is, let me see. There's a broad spectrum of what can be done, and I would suggest we ought to find out what those possibilities are and see if we can't fine-tune our tax code going forward in order to maybe make up some small differences with some of the shortages we have, but not this fiscal year, but moving forward. It's a discussion part, and this is kind of enlightening because I didn't know there were multiple ways of defining the tax rate. So I think that's something worthy of a discussion. Thank you.
Completely agreed, Councilmember. Consider. That's right. Councilmember Ndibumadu.
Okay, my next question is for Dr. On. Dr. On, could you just please kind of give a brief kind of explanation as to how this potential role would kind of work in your office, the kind of things that it would support, and what this work would enable your office to be able to do? And then the follow-up question is for Todd, which is, by when do you anticipate, this role possibly being implemented? Because this goes to the completion of the modernization plan.
Councilwoman, so as you noted that we manage many different types of data sets or types of assets. So short term, this person would help us developing a more extensive data dictionary. So that would improve the data integrity across the board. It's going to create a baseline, creating a database we are going to build, and we can build the asset inventory based on that data dictionary. And also the framework moving forward, how we can, even when we select a new application, we can have a mindset that how it's going to be integrated with the rest of the applications in place. So it is communicating both ways.
As far as the master plan, I believe we could probably get that done within the first quarter of the fiscal year. Hire that person until we had the plan. I think it would shape the type of person we would be looking for. But by the second quarter, I think we'd be prepared to hire that person.
Thank you so much. My follow-up question, Director On, and this concludes my questions for this evening. Dr. On, can you just kind of speak to some of the operational impacts that would kind of bring to your departments? And when I say operational impacts, clearly I'm not talking about the negative aspects of it, but essentially, what are the operational impacts? And then from a customer service or customer delivery perspective, like what does that enablement look like? Kind of, should you be able to do something like this?
One prime example is integration between 311 system and our work order management system would provide multiple benefits. First, that hypothetically, if we receive a comment through the 311 system, with a system integration, it would automatically create a work order in our work order management system, and that work order will be assigned to responsible party or the person. And when the work is completed or there's update to be shared, then the system would communicate back to the 311 system. The 311 system would notify the whoever submitted a request or comment. That'd be one example, Councilwoman.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Turning it over to my colleagues, Councilmember Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have several budget objectives that focus on minimal or no fiscal impact. The emphasis is on partnership, coordination, and long-term impacts is on the effectiveness and efficiency of government services. The first one is to continue the strategic planning budget initiative for the council and use internal resources to assist with facilitation. I just wanted to get that out there, and I know we do it, but I want to make sure we continue to do that because that'll help us in the long run with the stuff we're doing now. My other objective, and
Sorry,
yes, sir.
Mind if I just take it one at a time?
Sure.
All right, apologize. All right, so we would put that under city manager side of the budget.
Yeah, I was here. It's sort of been a joint priority between the city manager's budget and the city council's, but from a budget objective understanding that we want to keep going on.
General consensus for this?
Yes.
We're good? Okay, cool. Sorry, go ahead.
And my second one is under that same category, council and city manager's office. And this is our budget accountability committee, or budget review, I call it accountability, to establish a budget accountability committee comprised of the mayor and city council members to strengthen fiscal stewardship, improve operational efficiency, increase transparency in financial reporting, and identify cost savings opportunities across city operations. The committee shall review departmental expenditures, evaluate outdated administrative processes, recommend technology-driven efficiencies, reduce reliance on paper-based operation, and promote transparent communications with residents regarding the city's financial condition and budget performance. So basically, you've heard a lot of that in Councilmember Ndudumadu. In her presentation, what I'm trying to do is formalize an organization that is made up of council members and under the city manager's office to make sure that these things are executed upon and followed up on. Any questions on that?
Okay, so this one we would do under City Council. Councilman Brady, I know, has a resolution related to this directly, and Councilmember, go ahead, sorry.
Well,
I see you separately might have a question.
Well, how does this relate to what was previously proposed last week, and what's the makeup of this committee, and what kind of authority would it have, and the like? Just a little more detail would be helpful.
Okay, so go ahead.
I was going to say, do we want just to, we can have Councilmember Brady propose his resolution, which answered a lot of those questions next week, but we can simply add as a budget objective that we will simply carry out his resolution as proposed.
I agree to that. That's fine.
But I'm trying to figure out what you're proposing.
It's the same, it's aligned to what you're proposing. It includes all the council members.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I
It's the
thought it was
same
new.
thing.
Thought it was new and different.
Okay, no, it's the same thing. I just wanted to make sure that I put it as a budget objective as well.
Perfect. So for clarity, it'll be Councilmember Brady's resolution. Councilmember Rogers is simply saying, let's make sure that it's included as an objective in the budget. Okay.
That's all.
Roger,
Yes.
we're on the same page. Cool.
Okay, yeah, we're good on
Thank you,
that.
team.
All right, so the next one is economic development. And I'm glad to see Mr. King sitting there. So this has to do with the Bowie Women's Business Center. And it can utilize resources that's already in the Economic Development Office, unless I'm told otherwise. And so this is to strengthen and expand the Maryland Business Women's Center Bowie location as a premier small business incubator and entrepreneurial resource hub in Prince George's County by enhancing business development services, increasing entrepreneur participation, improving marketing and networking opportunities, and supporting successful transitions of incubator businesses into sustainable independent operations. The Bowie Economic Development Office would serve as lead department in collaboration with the Bowie Business Innovation Center and the Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce to strengthen operational effectiveness, mentorship opportunities, visibility, and long-term business success for participating entrepreneurs. And I'll give you a little backdrop on why I'm proposing this. I've gone over to the Maryland Women's Business Center a couple times, particularly last week, and the center has been closed. I was able to get in Saturday, and what I found out was that the entrepreneurs, there's no structure as far as their follow-up and follow-through. People are not showing up when they're supposed to show up. And then a couple recommendations that was made by the one entrepreneur was there, was looking for more marketing support and networking opportunities, as well as support transitioning them to into sustainable, independent businesses. So that's, I'm ready to answer any questions on that one. You have any questions?
Any reaction from staff or thoughts from staff?
No, if next time you observe a problem like that, please bring it to our attention. Supportive of programs we've already got going,
Yeah.
and we'll strengthen the ones we've got going forward. And I'd ask only, could you email me that? Because I won't be able to, I didn't get half of it
Oh,
transcribed.
yeah. I'll email all of this, sure. And the whole purpose was just to support, and I had just gone over Saturday and had that conversation, so I wrote this up. Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Mayor?
I'm seeing nods from council. Any questions? A bunch of nodding, so.
Has to do with community health resource and referrals. This is a little different, and it may not, it's not as overwhelming as it may seem to be when I read it, when I talk about expand. So it's expanding the role of the Bowie Youth and Family Services in partnership with the Bowie Police Department to improve community awareness of and access to existing county, state, and nonprofit health resources available, behavioral health resources available to Bowie residents. And the initiative shall prioritize partnerships, outreach, education, crisis referral coordination, and public safety collaboration to support not only families, but teens, and adults and families experiencing mental health challenges. So this is for, I guess, community services, yes. And so one of the reasons why I brought this up is that Bowie Youth and Family Services has been around for many years. I think it was established back in the 70s. And it was created to promote positive outcomes for youth and prevent juvenile delinquency and support families dealing with a conflict crisis. So over the past 50 some odd years, mental illnesses have increased, and it's not so much that it's increased, but people are making them known, particularly around anxiety, depression, stress-related conditions. And so now there's better awareness. My thought was that because about 23% of the U.S. adults experience mental illness, and particularly young adults ages 18 to 25 now report the highest rates of mental illness. And I know black males have the highest rate of suicide, young black males. And so my thing is, why not see if we can develop a more coordinated approach, more for resource direction, not additional mental support from the service itself. But right now, when we have these scenarios, and it's one woman who, over the last couple weeks, has been over at Allen Pond, and I got a couple calls this morning. She was back there again this morning. My thing is, if we can have, it's nothing you can do when a person doesn't want to help themselves, and mental illness is a challenge. But if it was a coordinated effort and not an ad hoc responsibility of our grants office, maybe we can pull something together and make it more effective. So that's where I was coming from with this one. Any questions?
I understand.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Cool. Other here tonight, Councilman. With that, we'll conclude our 5th budget work session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your participation. I am extremely grateful for the fact that we are going to deliver a budget, knock on wood, on time. So I'm really grateful to staff for being on this roller coaster with us, and really grateful to my colleagues for taking the time. This has been a very, very busy 6 weeks. With that, everyone stay safe tonight.